Today begins the second impeachment trial for Donald Trump, a man who is no longer the president and cannot be removed from office. Well, so Trump's legal team argues that the impeachment trial is unconstitutional because he's not in office. It actually says the point of impeachment is to remove from office and stop them from holding office again. The Democrat argument is and stop him from holding office again. We'll see how this actually plays out, but in my opinion, I think it's just dead in the water. We've already seen, I think, 47 Republicans say we want this shut down now, and I believe they voted to do so. So you know they're not going to actually convict Donald Trump for incitement of an insurrection. Their goal with that article of impeachment is that, I believe it's the 14th Amendment, that no one can hold office if they've incited insurrection or engaged in insurrection. That's the attempt. The problem is, anybody who listened to what Trump has said that day knows he didn't. And anybody saying he did, they're just lying. They are. We heard from people like Maxine Waters, get in their faces. That's actually assault. You remember this? Maxine Waters was standing outside and said, if you see anyone from this administration, you get in their faces. Depending on your jurisdiction, right? If you're in, say, Illinois, I can't speak for most other states. If you get into someone's personal space and get in their face, that's called assault. Battery would be physical contact or some kind of attack. That's why in Chicago, they say it's assault and battery. Now, Donald Trump said, you've got to fight, and things like that. Now, that could be considered, I guess, to some people, to be fair, but I think it's just political rhetoric. Telling people to fight. Fight means a lot of things. It doesn't mean physically fight. It could mean figuratively or politically. Now, here's the important thing. You see, Donald Trump did give explicit instructions to his followers. That's right. And this is going to be devastating to the Democrats. The explicit instructions Donald Trump gave were to peacefully march and cheer on some politicians. That's actually what he said we were going to do. He said, we are going to peacefully march and cheer on some politicians. Oh, no, he incited people to attack the Capitol. The best part about this whole impeachment thing is, if you look at the actual timeline, the rioters breached the first barricade while Donald Trump was still speaking at his rally. He incited them before he even said it. It was the words that came after. Okay, whatever. I'm sure he said some stuff before they breached the barricade that people are going to claim was incitement. But the people who were already trying to take the barricades down weren't listening to him speak. So I don't know what you want to call that. The people who were at the actual speech, many of them just left. There were hundreds of thousands of people. This, my friends, is a glorious waste of time. And I got to be honest, I didn't actually care to talk about it. I honestly don't think that many people care that they're wasting everyone's time again. But then I saw this wonderful article from CNN. Trump's trial set to rock Washington and echo through the ages. Dude, wow. They love this man. They love this man. They can't quit him. Donald Trump has been laying low, watching the Super Bowl, I guess, golfing. And they're so desperate to just please make Daddy Trump come back so we can get those ratings. That this is what they write. This is insane. This is going to be a waste of everyone's time, and we know it. The Republicans already said it's DOA. What do you mean it's going to rock Washington and echo through the ages? No, it isn't. It's going to waste all of our time. We're going to sit around twiddling our thumbs, and then we're going to be like, don't care. I'll tell you what the bigger issue here is, why I do want to talk about this. A couple things. Democrats are actually discussing axing election deniers from bills. It's more than that. The Democrats want to expel anybody who objected. Elections don't matter anymore. They removed Marjorie Taylor Greene. CNBC reports GOP Rep. Marjorie Taylor Greene's donors largely stick with her after House ousts her from her committees. This woman was elected. She said a bunch of dumb stuff in the past. Everybody has. It's an interesting thought I was having, recently. Do we really define people by things they did a long time ago or what they say now? Well, cancel culture would seek to claim that if you said something in the past, that defines exactly who you are today. And that's just clearly not true. Marjorie Taylor Greene came out and denounced a lot of the things that she had said and apologized for them. Okay, I can respect that. We're done, right? No, apparently not. They kicked her off her committees. She was elected by her constituents and she is in Congress. But elections don't matter. Because now they're saying we want to expel people And whoever is in the majority will strip away the right of representation from the areas that vote for him. You see where this is going? I know a lot of people don't want to say the scary words, but we're headed towards uniparty rule. And what happens when the Democrats continue to use their majority power to remove anyone who opposes them? What happens when these states no longer have representation because the House majority keeps stripping them of their committees, booting them off, or even in a more extreme case, what if they actually do expel people? That's when you'll see angry people. Hey, no taxation without representation, right? And they'll say, oh, but Marjorie Taylor Greene's still in Congress. She can still vote on things. Yeah, but she's booted off her committees. Take a look at this article from CNN Politics. They say Trump's trial set to rock Washington and echo through the ages. The simple question posed by Donald Trump's second impeachment trial that begins Tuesday is whether a president who loses re-election can get away with a violent coup attempt in a desperate bid to stay in power. It's just so incredible. Absolutely. The answer contained in the former commander-in-chief's likely acquittal, thank you, for inciting a deadly mob assault on the Capitol will echo through generations and may influence the outcome of some unknowable future test of U.S. democracy. U.S. democracy. Oh, I love when they say that. What does that mean, U.S. democracy? What are you talking about? Democratic institutions for electing representatives? But more contemporary concerns that do not depend on the verdict of the Senate trial, like the consistent cowardice of Republicans who refuse to hold Trump to account and the effect of the evidence on the American public, are also hugely consequential since they will shape the modern political age. Events of the next week will inform the country's capacity to move on from the traumatic presidency and left it as divided as at any time since the Civil War. You lunatic, are not making anything better. Stephen for CNN, the Democrats are playing the exact same game. You are moving your piece on the chessboard and complaining the other guy is trying to take your queen or checkmate your king. What do you think you are doing? They're all doing this. And more importantly, the Democrats are doing it more. They don't seem to recognize this, do they? They are the ones who are inciting. They are the ones who are pushing over, and they just won't stop. No matter what happens, no matter how many times people say, okay, they just won't shut up, and they keep pushing harder and harder. And people thought that as soon as Joe Biden got elected, it would all go back to normal. No, because the Democrats just won't stop. We can complain the Republicans are feckless and spineless and they're pathetic losers and all of the above. That's fine. I think Democrats agree with that. But the Democrats are the ones who will not stop. Now they want to impeach the president. He ain't even president anymore. Former president. They want to impeach the former president, and he's not even president. They want to make sure he never runs again. They want to expel from Congress anyone who sought to use the constitutional process of objection to defend Donald Trump, or at least to get some airtime for his supporters. Now that they're in the majority, they will not stop. They will just keep screaming and punching and punching. You thought it was going to end? Well, you were wrong. So many people voted for Joe Biden, and they were ignorant, and I feel bad for them. They thought if we just get Joe Biden in, things will go back to normal. And now it's going to accelerate. I think it was Michael Malice who said they thought that Donald Trump was the river, but he was in fact the dam. Something like that. There's a couple ways to interpret that. That it's Trump supporters were being held back by Trump. That's true. A lot of people feel like with Donald Trump in office, people on the right, the right-wing populists, felt like they at least had a chance. Now, with Trump out, they're going to be going ham, I suppose. You look at what happened on the 6th, for instance, right? There's another way to look at it. Trump was also the dam holding back the Democrats in many ways. And it wasn't just Trump. I mean, the Republicans in Congress, while they may be spineless and feckless, they may sit around and do a whole lot of nothing but complain. They were holding back the Democrats to a certain degree. We can now see with the latest calls for acceleration, the Democrats are going to ramp things up to such a ridiculous degree, it will be worse than anyone realized. Now, I'm not saying the buildings will crumble and people will be running around on fire or anything like that. I'm saying that all of the most annoying things you are complaining about in media and the economy, it's not going to stop. Trump's not even president anymore, and they still won't shut up. They won't. They just keep going. Think about all those people who thought they'd, it's absolutely hilarious. There's this video. The president, the head of the AFL-CIO, is just left flabbergasted and dumbfounded that Joe Biden is destroying union jobs. Yeah, sorry, bro. You're an elitist moron. And I feel bad for all the people in the union who listened to what you had to say and you sold them out for what? For Joe Biden. Great. Now their jobs are gone. On day one, Biden nuked the Keystone Pipeline. Now, in terms of environmentalism, I can understand the arguments about the Keystone Pipeline. The problem is, what are we going to do? Send oil now on freighter? Yep, that's what people are going to do. So it's not there's no easy solution here, but I can tell you this, at the very least, there's something to be said about union workers who were told to support Biden and he would get your back, and then he just, on day one, destroyed it. This guy goes on to say, the trial will begin just a month after a now infamous day when Trump greeted a huge crowd in Washington, already primed for revolt by his weeks of false claims of election fraud. Let me tell you, it is not incitement in any legal capacity to tell someone that something is happening, that you believe something is happening, and then to say peacefully march and cheer on some politicians. If I said to you that there were a bunch of, man, I can't stand those people down, fishing illegally. They keep fishing illegally, and I want the police to do something about it. It's about time we go to the police department and clap and cheer for the brave men and women who are going to stop these criminals. And then someone goes down and attacks the people who are fishing. That's not incitement. That's not. Telling someone like, let's have the legal process take care of it is literally the opposite of incitement. By arguing that the trial is unconstitutional, politically motivated, and an infringement of his free speech rights, Trump's defense will resurface a core theme of his tenure, blah, blah, blah. We get it. Look, I didn't want to talk about this, but it is the news. And I saw this article that made me just laugh out loud. Rock Washington, an echo through the ages. Bleh. Sure. And I'll tell you what really does freak me out is this. Democrats weigh axing election deniers from bills. Let me show you a tweet I put out. We got this guy, John Oberlin. He says, we're making this too complicated. Anyone who voted to overthrow our election should be kicked out of Congress for violating their oath to uphold the Constitution. No exceptions. It's that simple. And I said, I like this because the objection process is actually in the Constitution. So then everyone who votes to expel those who objected would be voting to kick themselves out. What I mean is, if you are saying that people should be kicked out of Congress for violating their oath to the Constitution, and you vote to kick out people for violating their oath to uphold the Constitution because they enacted a constitutional process, you yourself are now violating the Constitution. So please, there is the door. We'll see you out. But think about where we go. I mentioned this earlier. If we're going to boot every single person we don't like from Congress, from their committees or whatever, then what do you think these local jurisdictions are going to do? We already had John Podesta, one of the top-ranking Democrats at the DNC, say that it is better that the West Coast secede from the Union than Donald Trump win. We've already seen Time Magazine put out an article about some secret cabal. It's ridiculous. Like the political division in this country is so psychotic. I feel like we're all basically standing at the front lines of some kind of major civil conflict, just staring each other down with blind rage at this point. The problem is, even when the Republicans back down and lose, even when Trump supporters try to move on, the Democrats won't stop chasing. I was watching that movie From Dusk Till Dawn. You ever see it? It's Robert Rodriguez, Quentin Tarantino, George Clooney's in it. And there's this scene where, Harvey Keitel is talking to George Clooney and he says, are you such an effing loser that you can't tell when you've won? And then George Clooney is like, what did you call me? And then Harvey Keitel's like, I didn't call you anything. I didn't make a statement. I asked a question. Are you such a loser that you can't tell when you've won? I love that scene. It's a brilliant scene. Harvey Keitel, amazing work. George Clooney was good in that movie too. Movie was a little out there, but the point is, the Democrats took it. They jump around and they cheer and they celebrate. You won. Now you want to hold your ground, and you want to, I guess now that you have the House, effectively the Senate and the presidency, you have all the cultural institutions. Now is the time when they're supposed to calm down and go, we need unity. We need you. And they're kind of doing that. because they need to convince the more moderate right-leaning individuals to just say it's not worth the fight. But what happens when after they win, they get a S-eating grin and just in their insane rage start running down people and beating the crap out of them, telling them you aren't allowed to have a representative. Now that we have power, we're going to come for all of you. Truth and reconciliation, retribution, impeachment for the man who's not even president because we hate him and he's evil and he's wrong. People are going to just be backed into a corner. And what happens when they are? They're going to snap. Maybe that's what they really want. They put out this Time magazine article. Man, was that crazy. You saw it, right? The Secret Shadow Campaign. That's the title of the Time magazine article. They claim they recruited poll workers. Those are some pretty bold and outlandish claims, Time magazine. Why would they say it? Do they want Trump supporters to be pushed into a corner where they have no choice but to do something to defend themselves with no representation, with rapid demonization? If the onslaught just doesn't stop, the censorship isn't stopping, nothing is stopping, it's only getting worse. And what about the regular people, the union workers, who thought they were going to vote for Biden and everything would go back to normal? Just back to the way things were before Trump. Not realizing it wasn't Trump who created this, but the media will tell you it is. They'll say, see, now that Trump is out, Trumpism is still here. Trump did not create this animosity, this anger. It's been a long time coming. The only problem is you can now see it bubbling up. And the people who are angry are organizing. Do you call these left-wing progressives who hate the Democrats Trumpism? They believed a lot of the exact same stuff that Trump was preaching back in 2016. No joke. A lot of media was trying to smear Bernie as just like Donald Trump. And he was in many ways. Not personally, like character-wise, but policy-wise, definitely. Bernie then sold out and went full critical race theory, so whatever. But this anger pointed at the elites has been here since 2008. And you can also track the money printing, which is really interesting. After the economic collapse in 2008, I think that's when everything really broke. And you could argue you could always reduce it down to some other moment, like maybe when Glass-Steagall was repealed, that's when the motion, things were set in motion that resulted in the collapse of 2008. Sure. But in 2008, when the economy was just imploded, we started printing money like crazy and people snapped. They lost everything. Occupy Wall Street popped up. And then so what did we see? They injected critical race theory and identity politics into Occupy and fractured it. But the anger was still there. They didn't do anything but divide. They did not conquer. You ended up with left and right-wing populists. When the right-wing populists actually won the presidency, there was sheer panic among the establishment elites. And they were able to convince the left populists that Trump was their enemy through identity politics. But what happens now? Well, right now, Trump's not in power anymore. You got no boogeyman. The Republicans are pathetic and weak for the most part. And right-wing populists are not really, well, without Trump. Trump was leading that charge. So we're not hearing too much about what Trump supporters are necessarily doing. Though there are desperate attempts in the media claiming, Trumpists, this is, no joke, there's an article, are more interested now in GameStop and Wall Street. And it's like, yes, because they were here before Trump. They will be here after Trump. Trump was just the avatar of their anger and a chance for them to get something done in government. Now that he's gone, the anger remains. It's been there since 2008. Now a lot of it might actually start lining up with the left populists, and you will see a populist attack. This might be why, in my opinion, YouTube has started censoring a lot of these progressive channels that challenge Joe Biden. The last thing they want is, I think Jimmy Dore is okay, but it's people like Jimmy Dore. They're leftists. They're socialists in many capacities. I think Jimmy is a socialist. I'm not entirely sure. But they're anti-democrat. They're pro-free speech. They're pro-liberty. They're just opposed to the establishment machine. Having those messages are very, very dangerous for the Democratic elite. When you have leftists who actually have right-wing audience members who disagree with them on politics, that's a problem. Unity could be forming again, and we could see the reemergence of an Occupy Wall Street type phenomenon. We've already had a young Republican, announce he wanted to reoccupy Wall Street. It's a little too cold to do it right now, so it didn't go beyond, I think, just one day or so. But there are many on the left and the right who are saying, let's roll. Don't care. If you're targeting Wall Street and the big banks, the financial system, we got to do it. Now, fortunately for the left establishment machine, they still have everyone divided on critical race theory and identity politics. It's just absolutely fascinating to me to see how regular Americans are so easily duped by this. Now they say, but Trump supporters duped people. Yeah, sure. I'm sorry, Trump duped his supporters. And I say, sure, but there's probably a lot of people who didn't care about Trump. I mean, think about this. They want to impeach Trump for incitement of insurrection, but there were a lot of people who clearly didn't care what Trump said and were already already did breach the barricades before Trump even finished speaking. In fact, around halfway through Trump's speech, people were trying to breach the barricades. It was only at around 2/3 through Trump's speech, they broke through the first barricade. If Donald Trump said peacefully cheer on politicians and a bunch of other people said whatever and then stormed the building, they clearly didn't care what Trump had to say. So they are populists first, or whatever you want to call it. They are Trump supporters second is the easiest way to say it. After all that happened, the Donald Trump Forum, the Donald.win, which is now Patriots.win, said, we're not going to allow people to defy Trump's statements. Trump said, go home in peace. We can't have this lawlessness. And they said, we support Trump. This is what Trump said. This is what we do. And a lot of people were like, no, no, no. But the moderators were like, dude, if you're a Trump supporter and Trump says, don't do this, don't you want to support the guy? A lot of people didn't, because they were Trump supporters second. And that's the point. The Democrats can't get rid of this. They can only make it worse. These people haven't gone anywhere. Banning them didn't do anything. You want to expel these people? Fine. What do you think happens when people feel like they have no representation, as many of them feel now? They get backed into a corner. I'll tell you what's scary. The story of the killdozer. Take a look at that story. A man who felt wronged by the government with nothing left to lose and backed into a corner, built this massive machine that people started calling the killdozer. It was surrounded by massive blocks of concrete, and he went around destroying buildings. That's what happens when people snap. And now you've got 75 million Trump voters, 74 or so. Not all of them are outraged and freaking out, but a lot of them probably are. And a lot of them who voted for Trump did it not because they are Trump supporters first. They did it because many of them just oppose the Democrats. So take a look at what's happening now with these unions. How would you feel if you're a union worker and your president, the head of the not your president, the head of the AFL-CIO, this biggest union, said, yeah, Joe Biden. He's still got a job. He's still rich. It's the rest of you that are left reeling with no income in a pandemic. Thanks, Joe. Now we can have an argument about Keystone, its merits, the pros and the cons. The point is, these individuals who worked on Keystone clearly support Keystone. They're building it. Now they have no jobs. What are they going to do? Learn to code? Is that the name of the game? Work green jobs. Do repairs. Oh, yes, the job you were skilled at, that you were getting paid to do, has been destroyed. And it was your union that advocated for your own destruction. What do you think people like that do when they're backed into a corner? So I'll tell you this. We need peace. We need calm, resourcefulness. And a lot of people have said to me, Tim, it's easy for you to say you have a job. And I get it. But I tell you, man, what happened on the 6th was one of the stupidest things that could have happened, because all it did was hurt all of Trump and Trump supporters and Trump himself. Now look what they're doing. They won't stop. What you need is tact, resource. You need organizing. You need community building. I wouldn't be surprised if what the Democrats are doing is a desperate attempt to try and smash down Trump supporters into a violent reaction, so then they can then justify expanding national security powers. This is going to be a big fat waste of time, this impeachment, so I hope you all enjoy it. The next segment is coming up at 1 p.m. on this channel. Thanks for hanging out, and I will see you all then.